did.
Oh, I just busted up. Oh, it's done.
Ever since I have been involved in this hobby of go-karts, mini bikes, and the like, I have been absolutely obsessed with these, and I really want one. But these things are basically unobtainium, and when you do find them, they sell for like 10 grand. And then I'm still very salty that I lost the bid for this one on Facebook Marketplace. And with Mini Mayhem coming up at the end of the next month, I think it'd be a very cool idea to build one. So, these are my original mini bikes. They are the thing that got me into the hobby all those years ago, and they have been sitting up under the house collecting dust. So I think it's time we put them to good use. Let's get the camera spun over to the garage, and I'll show you what I'm thinking. The best way I see to go about building one of these is to do this part first. This is what is known as a walking beam axle. You find them a lot on big trucks, semi-trucks, box trucks, and the like. So if we pull this picture down, you can see a little bit what I've got laid out right here. I've got two 3/4 inch pipes with the same wall thickness as the rest of our mini bike frame laid out. We got our 3 axle hangers, and our tires will sit here with the sprocket carrier on the tire, or on the same axle with the tires, sorry. And then we have an intermediate shaft with 2 more sprockets. The sprocket will run from the engine to the intermediate sprocket and then out to our tires. And then there will also be more axle hangers on our mini bike frame. The reason I say it'll be easier to do this part first is because I don't actually know how wide this needs to be to clear the tires and the sprocket carriers. So I'm gonna go ahead and tack this part up, and then we can see how wide we need to be, weld in a reinforcement bar, and then once that's done, we can actually go about modifying the frame of the mini bikes themselves. So I'm gonna go change into a pair of jeans and a long sleeve shirt so I can actually weld comfortably. So smash cut to static shot. Okay. That's a W. Now, whew. Now that these are the same and they'll line up, we can get the other axle hangers to actually mount it to the bike on, like this. So I'm gonna go eat, because this is taking me a lot longer than I thought, and I'm hungry and thirsty and need a break. So just smash cut randomly to me doing that. Woo! All right. I never claimed to be a good welder. I always said that I could weld. Let's turn that off. So, these are just tack welded on right now. Get the mask off. These are just tack welded on right now. I'll finish welding them up later, but as far as I can tell, this one needs to be bent just a tad bit. Oh, please do not come loose. Okay, that one needs to get tack welded up again. She's about to come off, but yeah. Okay, take 2 of that, we got our beams welded up. They're not even welded up, they're literally just tack welded. And the plan is that the tires are gonna be on these two ends, and then this is going to be the intermediate sprocket here, and then it'll run to the engine. So let's go ahead and get the tire and the sprocket carriers in the axle put on this so we know how wide it is, and then we can weld in a reinforcement bar in the middle here, and then we can actually finish these welds. Because like I said just a minute ago, they're just tack welded just to hold them in place. So I'm gonna go get something to drink, jump cut or whatever to that, to me actually putting the tires and the sprocket carrier on and measuring it, and then I'll bring you guys in closer and show you exactly what I'm thinking. Whew. Okay, so we know about how wide our walk-in bars need to be now, because if you refer back to our template, the sprocket carriers need to be staggered, you know, one staggered forward, one staggered backwards. So that's why I have both sprocket carriers on here, and then I have the brake disc, because obviously I want the rear brakes to work. And then I also have the 12-tooth sprocket that's going to be running from the engine to this intermediate axle here. So let's go ahead and get this measured, cut a piece of pipe, notch it out so it actually fits properly, and then we can clamp it up, tack weld it, and then actually finish welding all of this other stuff. All right, here we are with the walk-in bar fully welded up. Don't go criticizing my welds now. I know I'm not the best welder, but they hold. Put the whole weight on there. But the reason we're jumping to this is because my housemates came home, and my housemate's car likes to hijack my camera and phone whenever it pulls into the driveway. So it pulled into the driveway, stopped my recording, so I just decided to skip to the rest of the way of this being done. So now we need to cut that axle to length with the chop saw. And let's go ahead and get the tires, the sprocket carriers on it, so that way we know where to weld the chain tensioners, because I am actually kind of super paranoid about chain tension. So let's go ahead and jump to the static shot of me getting this thing all assembled, and then I'll bring you guys back in and show you a little bit more of what I'm talking about. Okay, so let me grab this and come in here. My earphones and the camera are about to die, so I'm going to show you guys what I'm thinking and then do the rest of it off camera. So, according to our diagram, you know, of the other bike that we're kind of mimicking here, we need to take this sprocket to the intermediate shaft, and then I'm thinking about putting the chain tensioner here, so it's completely out of the way of the tire. And then that's pretty much how that is. So let me go ahead and get this mocked up and get some little tabs welded on here. And then I'll bring you guys back in and show you what goes on. So I'm going to do that off camera because, like I said, battery's about to die. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, we got our chain tensioners just tack welded on right now. I did break out the flux core because tack welding with the stick was kind of irritating, but I will be running an actual, the actual stick welder to finish these up. And then I also welded on our spring brackets because if you recall back to our template, we have springs on the front and back of the walking bar. So if we bring this down again, tack welded up some brackets for the springs on the front and the back of the walking bar. And then I also welded up a chain tensioner bracket on this side. So now I think we're ready to start modifying the mini bike frames themselves. But first, I need to police the shop up a little here because I need the motorcycle jack that's all the way back there. So fast forward to that, I guess. So the plan now is got to disassemble this bike because we're putting a different engine on it. And then the plan is to make 2 cuts right here. Cut here and cut here. And then we need to widen the frame a little bit because if you remember, our walking bar is wider than the actual frame itself. So, not by much, but it's still wider. So, we need to widen the frame by about 1/2 inch. So I'm going to cut here, I'm going to cut here, and then I'm going to widen the frame by about 1 inch right here, and then weld on some reinforcement material there, and go back, and then we'll be able to mount 2 more of these axle hangers to the frame of the bike to give us 1 continuous axle here, just like our reference photo again. But first, I'm going to get a front brake on that thing because the front brake system that I had on the other one is extraordinarily sketchy. It's just another rear wheel. But also first, I'm going to a car show. This is my 1988 Pontiac Fiero GT, and it's, of course, not done. It'll get painted next month because I'm still waiting on parts for it. But if you want to see me put a Northstar V8, a Cadillac Northstar V8 in this car, hit that subscribe button. Now that we got the old small block engine plate off, we can start working on welding this big block engine plate on there. But first, I need to wire wheel some stuff just to get it weld ready. And I'm going to go eat because it's lunchtime, so I'm going to just roll straight into that. You can see exactly what I'm thinking here. Got the big block engine plate mocked up, and then also salvaged the other foot peg bar from the other bike and got it mocked up. And this is pretty much exactly how we're going to weld it on, because this does 2 things. It fixes my main complaint about these bikes, which is the foot peg placement, and then 2, also supports our big block engine mount in 3 separate places. So let's go ahead and get the camera set up and get this tack welded in place. I know I said I was going to tack weld it. I just decided to go ahead and like weld it proper. Don't go criticizing my welds now. I got a grinder and paint. I make my welds what they ain't. But I just went ahead and fully welded it so it was fully secure. I do need to finish running like an actual bead right there and there. But what you saw me do with the grinder is because we have to widen the rear of the frame to fit the whole walking bar assembly, I figured it would be a good idea to just cut these 90 degrees off. Just cut, and then slice them in half to create like an S bend. And that will widen the frame by about 2.5 inches out the back here. So I actually need to go run and get some more welding wire, and as you saw in the speed up part, a new pair of gloves. So I'm going to go ahead and roll straight into me fabbing these up and getting them on, and then we can work on actually extending the frame to where it needs to be. One thing that I'm also going to do is cut this tab for the fender off of this bar, and what we're going to do is we're actually going to build a little roof on the walk-in bar. So we're going to take some 3/4 inch tubing and weld it here and here, weld it up, weld a piece of flat bar across, so our fenders will sit on the walking bar. So that way we don't have to worry about clearancing them or worry about the tires hitting as the walking bar articulates. What I was doing there off camera, I robbed the fender hanger and the build plate off of the other bike, and what you just saw was me cutting the fender hanger and the build plate off of this bike, and we're going to use them for the fenders on the walk-in bar. So that's what I'm going to do next here in a second after I clean this one up just a bit. I'm going to do that first because honestly I'm still thinking about how I want to do this. So go ahead and start building that. What do you think? It'll needs a little bit of fine tuning and adjustment. That'll make for a perfectly sufficient fender for both the front and the back. That's where I'm going to call it a night. I'll do the rest of it tomorrow, but yeah, this is coming along pretty well. Finish actually welding these up. Need to bend them a little bit, and then I'll finish welding them up proper. But that way, so when the walk-in bar articulates, our tire won't hit our fender because now our fenders are a part of the walk-in bar. Tomorrow, we're going to roll right into that. We're going to weld up those S's, and we're actually going to extend the frame. So, let's jump to that, I guess. I'm not a good YouTuber, I know. Before we actually get on to widening the frame, I welded this bar wrong. As you can see, this foot peg is a lot further that way than the front ones. So I need to take the angle grinder and cut that rear foot peg bar off and re-weld it. But then that's when we can get on to welding our little S pipes here to widen the frame out. So I'm going to set the camera up for the static shot and then cut this and re-weld it. Let me bring y'all in and show you what I've done so far. Whew. So, it's just tack welded right now, but surely y'all can get the idea of what I'm thinking. I have to move that one because that one's obviously not in the right spot. But just made a little S curve to widen the frame out. Finish actually welding these. They'll look all right. And then I moved that bar over, as you saw in the very beginning. So now it's very close to being in line. It's not exact, but it's very, very close. So I'm gonna roll right into actually making these look right and then cutting a piece of pipe. I want to try to get the articulation of the tire to clear the seat. So that's kind of the plan right now, is to get the articulation of the bar to clear that. So I can mount my springs to this bar here. And then I also need to put this reinforcement bar back from where we cut it out to get the build plate off last night. So let's get the camera static shot set back up, and I'll finish welding all this stuff up, and then we can take some measurements, yeah? As you can see, I did some stuff off camera. When I say I did some stuff off camera, I actually did a whole lot off camera and then had to backtrack to this point, because as you can see, the inside diameter, or the inside distance of this, is about 11.5 inches. Whereas our walking bar is also about 11.5 inches wide. So we're gonna have to find a way to widen this space even more, because it needs to be about 14 inches to clear the walking bar and the brake rotor and the intermediate sprocket. So I'm gonna set the camera up after I think about this a little bit more of how I wanna go about widening this even more. So let's go ahead and cut to that, I guess. I think I made the best of a bad situation. Now the frame is a little bit wider than we need to be, but it is the correct length now. And the reason I made it a little bit wider than it needs to be is now it's pretty much in line with the foot pegs. And I thought that would look pretty good, and it does. So the next course of action, I think, is going to be to actually get these axle hangers at least tack welded up. Need to grind them because you see I did a little welding on this one earlier. Get these tacked up, and then I need to go salvage some other parts off of the bike to make a reinforcement bar here and also make a top bar. So let's go ahead and cut to that. When I say throughout this video that I salvaged parts off the other bike, that is exactly what I'm talking about. Just taking an angle grinder and going to town on that other motorbike to get uprights off of it or get pipe off of it. Let me show you what these are going to be for. We got these bars cut, and these are going to go here at or about however high they need to be. And then I'll tie them back into this bar here. You can see I've already ground away some to make a nice weld. And then these bars, I need to finish cutting them. They are going to go here between the axle hanger and this bar right here as well. This bar right here as well, to just reinforce it even further. I didn't actually have enough of the old bike to make this section, so that's where this piece of galvanized pipe comes in. Now, I know I've been wearing a mask throughout this whole video, but make sure you wear a mask when you're welding galvanized pipe or you will regret it. And so I'm gonna go ahead and get this stuff welded up, and then we'll bring you back in and show you. And once this stuff's welded up, we can go ahead and put the walking bar on, and then we can figure out where our rear brake caliper and rotor need to go. Start to see the vision. If you haven't been able to before, this is the point where you can see the vision of how it all functions. So we got enough clearance right here so that this walking bar can articulate fully and just barely clip exactly as intended. So we can move the fender back just a tad bit,
and she should have full articulation capabilities. Woo! And now we're at this point, we can find out where our brake caliper, because our brake rotor is going to go right here. You know, our brake rotor is going to go right here. So that way we can stop both rear tires with one brake rotor. So then we need to find out where on this bar the caliper needs to go. But first, I'm going to take this walking bar assembly off again and weld in some reinforcement. Not these bars, but the same type of bar, you know, here-ish at or about. So that this whole walking bar assembly is nice and secure. So that's how that goes. Well, needs to be actually welded, but we got rear brakes. Let's get the front tire and the front brakes back on, and then we can see if we need to extend our hose. But yep, that's pretty much that. There's rear brakes. We are going to be rocking a disc brake on the front, along with the disc brake for the rear tires. So this thing should have plenty of stopping power with all the traction that we'll have. Okay, we got front brakes. Let me bring you in and show you this here. So, the front brakes are just a kit. Got them from Go Power Sports, not sponsored by them, but front brakes, and then got the rear brake bracket tack welded up. I'm gonna actually like run a proper bead when I get the tires off, so I don't accidentally pop the tires with the spatter. But I gotta switch my brake levers because I'm weird and I like my front brake on the left. And then I like my rear brakes on the right. So I'm gonna have to switch the levers around because that's how that's set up. Front brake on the left, rear brake on the right. And that's also how the previous bike is set up, if you notice. Front brake on the left. So I'll do that off camera, do that and bleed the brakes. So now we need to start actually like building this up. And I just noticed that that is going to cause problems. So we got to shift that further forward. That's why we just tack weld things, ladies and gentlemen. We need to shift this caliper further that way so we can build up and back that way to create like a little box. So let's go ahead and get that all set up. That's pretty much that. Whew. Let me bring the camera in here. Now, these welds aren't fully done, but I'll finish them off camera. But that's a bike, baby. So, I might also add another reinforcement. Maybe like right here, just straight up. We'll see about that though. If it's there in the next shot, I did it, and then if it's not, I didn't. But I am going to finish up like all of these welds off camera because I'm going to take the tires off of it when I actually do the welding just to really minimize my chances of spatter. Because if you notice in the last clips, I've been running really cold just to not spatter as much as possible. So yeah, she's looking really good. I'm super happy with the way that it's turning out. First order of business, we had to reevaluate our reinforcement strategy a little bit because the bar that was going from here to here was just not cooperating with our walk-in bar assembly. It kept hitting and I just couldn't get the clearance right. So went to the hardware store, got some more pipe, welded it up, and we'll see if that works. If it doesn't, we'll try something different. But I think it's time we get an engine on this beast. What do you think? This engine started life as a Harbor Freight 420 Predator Hemi. You might have seen it in the background on the workbench in various states of assembly, and I've been purposely ignoring it up until now. I never actually planned to show you me building the engine because there's plenty of other better YouTubers out there who have videos on the process of building these engines. But if you'd like to see me do one, leave a comment down below. I have an idea for a 500cc engine build. As for the modifications that I've done to this one, starting from top to bottom, we got 67-pound dual valve springs with ratio rockers and chrome moly push rods, stainless steel 38mm intake and 35mm exhaust valves. I poured it and polished the head myself. I didn't really do anything crazy, just cleaned it up with a cartridge roll and a Dremel. We got the 38mm Mikuni carburetor, and I will be welding up an exhaust when we get the engine on the bike so we know how it needs to run. I had to deepen the valve reliefs in the piston to accommodate the dyno 310 cam that is in this engine. The piston is also milled 60 thousandths, and that has it sticking out of the hull about 10 thousandths to optimize quench. I also drilled gas ports in the piston, as you can see over here. We got an ARC stock length billet rod and one of ARC's non-adjustable flywheels set to 36 degrees of timing with a timing key. That could change, but we'll see. And this is a WSEPO crank start kit. What you do is you wind it up with the provided tire iron, and then you can either hit this switch right here or the provided handlebar switch, and what that does is it spins the engine over for you. It slipped off. There you go. Figured that would make it a lot easier starting this monster up. And then, lastly, we got a big block clone 72mm stroker crank in one of their balance shafts to go along with it, bringing this up to 458 cc's. I would like to give a special shout out to Big Block Clones. I'm not sponsored by them or anything, but I do understand that I can be a bit of a nuisance asking a million questions, and they've been extraordinarily helpful. So for all of your GX 390, 420 Predator, and even 500 Duramax needs, I'll leave a link in the description. Now, let's get this thing mounted on the bike. That is going to be perfect. So now the engine is in a position where this chain can run straight off the torque converter and come straight back to this intermediate axle here. And there will be one of these 12-tooth sprockets right there. So then the engine will drive the torque converter. The torque converter will drive the intermediate shaft exactly like this. And then the intermediate shaft will drive the two tires front and back. And that way, the lock-in bar can articulate without messing up our chain tension here. Whew! So I am going to run to the hardware store and get some things for the exhaust and the fuel tank. I think, because obviously the fuel tank's not going to work in its stock location, I'm going to use the same fuel tank here. So I think I'm just going to mount the fuel tank up here, right on the back of this bar. I think that'll make a perfectly sufficient place for the fuel tank. And then, you know, run the lines across, and then run the fuel tank lines just along this and down into the carburetor. And then run the vacuum port up where it goes right into the vacuum port. Yeah, this thing's coming along very well. Very, very well. Off camera, I went out to the hardware store and got some fuel line. And then I also just fabbed up a little janky bracket for the fuel tank. So let's get the fuel tank mounted on the bike. Let's get the fuel lines ran. And then first thing in the morning, I'm going to get the exhaust fabbed up. And then I think we'll be ready for a test start, maybe, possibly. We'll see. Well, let's get this done first. We're going to have to go back to the hardware store tomorrow because while the fuel line fits on this nipple, it doesn't fit on this one on the fuel tank. As you can see, it just slips right off. So I'm either going to have to get a different nipple or get an adapter or something. I'd probably just get an adapter for the two sizes that I needed and splice them here in the middle. But I am going to do some stuff off camera. We'll see. And then first thing in the morning, we're going to weld up that exhaust. So, few orders of business. First things first. I got this 90-degree elbow. It's literally just coolant hose that I got from Napa, and I cut it to make it work. I don't even know what car this is off of. First person to tell me what this is supposed to go on down in the comments gets a love heart reaction from me. And then we got a universal fuel filter to adapt those two different sizes of hoses. Figured that was the best idea because we need a fuel filter anyway. These hoses aren't in their final location, but they're close enough, honestly, for government work here. Now we can go ahead and get on to doing the exhaust. Got the header flange bolted up, and I think the plan is just to come out a little bit and then run straight up right here beside our reinforcement bar. So come out and then straight up like this, and then have our muffler sitting out here. So let's go ahead and get that welded up. And then, if you ask nicely enough, I might throw the throttle cable on it. We can do a test start here soon. What do you think? I was planning on taking the exhaust, back. I'm probably just going to leave it like that. I'll be 100% honest with you. I mean, obviously, fully weld it so it's sealed, but I can do that off camera. And then just straight up mount the muffler like you saw me right there at the end of the time skip segment. Mount the muffler here, and then, yeah, secure it right here with maybe another piece of pipe or a band clamp or something. So I'm going to go ahead and work on doing that off camera. But yep, that's an exhaust. I'll roll back into a time lapse of me setting up the bike for a test start. I will spare you guys the footage of me actually having sandblasted and painted the whole bike. But yep, the bike is sandblasted and painted. So I think it's time we actually do a final assembly and start the engine up and then start tuning it. What do you think? So, spin that way. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we did a lot of tuning of the bike off camera. 36 degrees of timing was about where she needed to be. Tell you the truth about it, she probably needs more, but that's all I'm able to give it. Got her wound up, got our carburetor dialed in, so contact. I have to dial in my carburetor jetting when everything's back together, so I'm going to go ahead and roll cut to a time lapse of me putting the rest of it back together. So, yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a motorbike. If it wasn't clear by the last time lapses, I have pulled an all-nighter to get this done because Mini Mayhem stuck up on me a lot quicker than I anticipated. And it is currently 4:51 a.m. and I gotta leave at 6 a.m. So I'm gonna clean the shop up a little bit and take a shower. But ladies and gentlemen, that is a heckin' motorbike. All that's left to do is put a band clamp on the exhaust hanger and put the torque converter on. Whew, she looks good. Let's see if she rides just as well, eh?
Oh no!
Got that on film?
I got it on video too.
Oh yeah! Oh god!
Oh
It's
no!
done.
Spectacular failure.
Brother, no! That's done. That's done. We won.
Well, I hope you had a good weekend.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we suffered what is in the industry referred to as a critical failure at Mini Mayhem. Turns out 16 gauge was just not strong enough for this task. So I need to re-weld this H-beam, and this time I'm going to do it out of 10 gauge pipe instead of 16 gauge pipe, and then I'm also going to weld in an A-frame. But as you can see, we also converted the bike to a single rear wheel just so I could run it at the event, and then she stripped two of the torque converter bolts out. You can see those two top bolts are completely stripped out. So I was pretty much SOL the entire weekend. But now that we're back in the shop, we're gonna get this thing running the right way. So I'm gonna go ahead and get to fixing those off camera, and then I'm gonna re-weld up that H-beam and show you how I'm gonna reinforce it with an A-frame. As you can see, we got the H-beam re-welded. And for the A-frame, I think I'm going to do this strategy right here, because you can see that these axle hangers are mounted upside down. And then I'm going to notch out a piece of pipe and put it on exactly like that. So the distance from this hole right here to this hole is 11.5 inches. So I cut this to be 11.5 inches tall total. So that'll give us a nice right angle triangle for strength and rigidity. I need to go ahead and cut that other one up and then actually cut the rest of that pipe for our 4 corners of the triangle, and then a crossbar across the top, and it should clear because it'll be 11.5 inches tall, and we have plenty of clearance between this bar and the top. So once the A-frame is welded on, then we can go about putting our chain tensioners back on. So let's set the camera up for that static shot, and we'll go ahead and get on it. That right there is an A-frame on an H-beam. If that sucker breaks, there's a bigger problem at play. Yep, you saw exactly that I cut this 45s, and I wanted to leave a little bit of room here on the end because I still want to mount the fenders, you know? Have to shift them around just a tad bit, but boop, boop. Still want to mount my fenders. So that's why I left a little bit of a gap right there. Oh, I am going to rest a second. And then let the fog clear out of here. And then we're going to get to getting those fenders on. And then we got to put our chain tensioners back on. So that's going to be the next clip. And then I'll probably roll straight into putting it back on the bike after it's painted. It is ungodly hot in here today. But that right there is the walking beam assembly. Fully re-welded, fully reinforced, and we got our chain tensioners. The other one's still in my pocket. And then we got our spring tabs for our stabilization springs. So yeah, that's how that is. Just like last time, I'm going to spare you guys the footage of me painting it, and then we're going to roll straight back into putting it back on the bike. I'm going to be completely honest. I was just going to roll right back into me test riding the bike, but when I got the walking beam assembly on, it was sitting crooked. It was sitting not crooked this way. As you can see, it's pretty much perfectly straight, but it was sitting crooked like this. And that is because this bar right here was too low. This axle hanger was too low. So I had to make a cut right here to be able to bend this whole assembly up and cut the middle bar off for the fuel tank to be able to move the middle bar up to get it right. But now, as you can see, it's not far enough this way. The whole thing needs to slide further this way to be on center, but as you can see, it's straight up and down, and it's pointed straight towards the front, if not over to the side a little bit. So it needs to come a little bit further that way, but we can do that after this is finished being repaired. And honestly, I'm going to do exactly that. First ride analysis, I just took it right up the road and then right back. And it just kicked the two chain tensioners out. Just kicked them straight up, just bent the crap out of them, and that's the way that is. So we might have to reevaluate how to make those stable. I might try to ride it without the chain tensioners and see if it throws the chain off. We'll see. These chains are basically brand new, so they haven't even stretched out yet. So I might be able to tighten them up by hand. And then I am getting no power out of the torque converter whatsoever. It is just slipping and opening up instantly, and I have no clue what is going on with that. I do have the reverse wound yellow spring, so I need to do a little bit more reading on what the heck. So I'm gonna flash forward to that, I suppose. You'll have to apologize for me sounding winded in this segment of the video. It's because I just got done pushing that beast all the way back down my road because these Go Power Sports chain tensioners are just not up to the task of tensioning my chains. It was right here, and I'll presumably have a picture somewhere over here of how it failed. But yeah, we're gonna have to completely reevaluate our chain tensioning system because those are just not up to the task. I re-put them on, re-straightened them back out, and then moved them in a different way, and they just both failed again. So we're gonna have to find a way to make this axle hanger be able to slide back and forth, both of them on either side be able to slide back and forth to tension that chain. So I'm gonna roll straight back into my thoughts on how to do that because I can't think of a way to do it right off the top of my head. I'll have to sit down and think about it a little bit more. So I'll bring y'all back in on my thoughts of how we're gonna do it after I get this whole walk-in beam assembly back off. After a little bit of experimentation, this is the chain tensioner system that I settled on. I ended up getting these plasma cut out of just 1/4 inch mild steel plate and then drilling 2 more holes in the axle hanger to line up with those slots, and then welding on a little angled bracket and drilling into it, and then welding on a threaded rod onto the axle hanger, as you can see. And now when you tighten these down, it will bring the axle hanger outwards. I don't know if you can see that, but it's as you tighten these down, it'll bring the axle hanger out to tension the chain. Same thing on the other side. And then once you get the chain tension where you want it, you can tighten down all 3 of these bolts and it'll hold it in place. And then you can tighten down the rest of your axle hangers as well. I need to make 2 more, so we're gonna roll right into that. My camera died literally as I was making the final tack weld on this to get it, held so I can actually fully weld it. But that's about as level as she can be, boys. You can see that one back there is level. So I am going to finish actually welding these off camera, and then we'll roll right back into the shot of me assembling the bike, hopefully for the final time. 3rd time's the charm, right? Well, ladies and gentlemen, the bike is fully back together now, and I did preemptively make a chain tensioner system for this main chain. As you can see, it's nice and tight just by welding 2 tabs onto the engine plate. And then welding, there are 2 bolts welded to the back side. Let me get over here and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. There is a nut welded here, and then there's another jam nut here to prevent them from going backwards. But that holds the engine forward to tension the chain. And then, of course, we have our redesigned axle hangers. They worked pretty much exactly as intended to tension the chains on both of the rear tires. This one's a little tight, but I would rather it be a little tight than a little loose because those chains are gonna stretch out as we ride the bike. And we are gonna ride the bike today, despite the fact that it's raining and barely above freezing, the things I do for you guys. But I did also get a 360 camera on Black Friday, so now we can see it fail in real time. So I'm gonna go ahead and switch to that camera. And you guys should also be able to hear me nice and crisp because I am wearing the wireless lapel mic with a windsock, so the audio quality should be a little bit better than you're expecting from my channel at this point thus far. So let's go ahead and get it moved out of the garage and then we can fire it up. What do you think? This thing is so heavy. Ugh. Whew. Despite the rain, we carry on. The things I do for you people. I did already have the bike running this morning before I started recording, so it shouldn't be that difficult to start up. I say that, and now watch it be super fucking difficult to start up. So I'm just gonna go ahead and get the starting fluid because I really don't want to be sitting out here in the rain for no real reason. Come on, baby. I just want to take it up the street. I just want to take it up the road and back. Because I know something else is going to break. Such is the game of life, I suppose. All right. Ignition is on. Come on. Whew. Feeling pretty good. It hasn't broke yet, which is further than we got last time. My gearing is just about perfect, I'm gonna be honest with you. It's torquey right off the bottom, and I am freezing cold, so I'm letting the motor warm up. I don't know if you can see where the camera is, but I do have a tachometer and a temperature sensor on the spark plug, so I can see what my RPMs are and how hot the motor is. So we're just letting her warm up a little bit. Oh my god, she turns like a boat. Oh yeah, she pulls. That was only half throttle, maybe not even. She's definitely got a lot of power. Because we're running a 44-tooth sprocket on this thing and a 12-tooth front, or sorry, a 10-tooth front. It's still extraordinarily torquey. She's pulling the front tire off the ground just a tad bit. I don't know if you can see it, but woo! Like, oh my god,
God, she turns like a boat, though. Now she's driving like I always envisioned it. Rear brakes work fine. I can lock up the rear brakes too. There's so much engine braking because of all those damn chains. There's so much engine braking. Motor sounds like it's running perfect too. It's not backfiring, it's revving out fine. Might need a tad bit more of ignition timing. To tell you the truth, of a kit. So I said, oh my God, it turns like a fucking boat. The front tire just doesn't do anything. It's a drag bike though. Fucking drag bike she is, baby. Woo! That was only 3,800 RPM. She definitely needs to be re-geared a little bit. She's geared a little bit too tall or short, whatever. Yeah, maybe not. She's still really torquey off the bottom end. But I actually am not a pussy and can actually get in some gas. I'm just so scared of fucking breaking it this far from the house. I'm not like sending it to beans, you know what I'm saying? It's gonna be really funny when I get back to the house and I realize that one of my chains came off. And I've been riding on one tire this entire time. Woo! Oh yeah! I'm running out of torque converter spin before the engine gets out. I'm overspinning the torque converter before the engine even thinks about giving out. That was 5,000 RPM. Woo! 5,000 RPM again on a big block, baby. That's a lot of fucking horsepower. She feels about like a stage 2 regular mini bike, which doesn't sound like a lot. But yeah, it'll pull the front tire off the ground just like that. Woo, she's spinning both. Woo, she's spinning. She's spinning both of them. Look at those wet leaves. Holy shit. That thing is amazing. It finally fucking drives right. I know my camera started sliding down over the course of that, but oh, both rear chains are still on. That one loosened up a tad bit, which is fine. My glasses are foggy though. So we are, that chain loosened up a tad bit too, which is fine. I knew they were gonna loosen up as we rode them, but we're starting to rub into the tire right here. So we're either gonna have to move. Let me actually like tilt the camera so you can see it. We're rubbing the tire, we're rubbing this rear tire right here, as you can see. So we're gonna have to kick that rear tire back over that way, but holy shit, it worked. Oh my God. This is a great day because I've been at this project for like 3 months now and I finally get to ride it. I'm gonna go back inside because I am cold.
I figure I owe you guys an actual up-close after-action report of the first ride. It is the next day, but literally nothing's changed. As you can see, either the sprocket or the tire walked closer, and I think it was because the chain walked closer. So we're going to have to loosen this up, move this sprocket out, loosen that one up, move that sprocket out. And then we're also going to have to retighten this one because it's getting a little floppy, which is fine. Loosen up these bolts, loosen up the ones on the other side, crank her down, tighten her back up, and then it's supposed to snow tomorrow, so we might get some footage of the snow, but I figured I'd owe you guys a close-up after-action report to actually show you what's currently going wrong. As you can see, that's no bueno.
Okay. So, it didn't snow, but that's not going to deter me. You should be seeing a GPS overlay, and if you're not, something is going wrong on the recording side of things. So, we'll see how that goes. Actually, just yank my phone back out of my pocket real quick and make sure it is doing what it's supposed to do. Yep, she's... Okay, got the screen lock going. We did also preload the torque converter spring more, so should give us a little bit more acceleration, but I will not have a way to see how fast we are going, so that'll be fun. I will only see how fast we are going in post, in the editing, so that'll be fun. Trying to figure out what's making a noise. I legitimately don't know what's making that noise. Ah! That's walking its way out. The starter's walking its way out. Let me address that real quick. I have zero clue what the torque spec to these bolts is. And even then, I'm not sure I can. There's one more on the bottom, isn't there? Yes, there is. I've lost a bunch of weight. Now these riding jeans are too big for me. You gotta pull them up, even though I am wearing a belt. Have to go out and get me a pair of riding jeans for Christmas, I guess. Hey, now don't you be difficult starting. Those inertia starters are really cool if the bike likes to start. You should be doing some proper off-roading. Yeah, that drone. my neighbor, my direct neighbor on the garage side, so the one that has to put up with all my nonsense on a consistent basis. Yeah. Like I said, I have no way of knowing how fast I'm going because my phone's in my pocket. And it's the thing that's recording the GPS data for this ride. So we'll be able to see how fast I'm going later. She's spinning the rear tires, I can tell that though. Anchor in the grass a little bit. So before anybody says anything, this is an abandoned golf course. They are building townhouses right here. So no, I am not tearing up a perfectly good operational golf course. Woo. What the hell is that? Something just made a god awful noise at the front end. I still have power, so... Whatever that is going to have to be addressed. Oh yes, it definitely has more punch. I'm going to adjust the driven spring a little bit. Ah! Figured it out! My tires hit the fender. Figured out what that is, so we're just gonna let it ride for the time being. The tread blocks of my tire are hitting the bolts that hold the fender in place. That are the tires hitting the fender altogether. Either way, that's what's happening, because I just saw it happen when I went over that little bump. Like I said, this right here used to be a golf course, or part of the same golf course, but they're turning it into a subdivision. So I don't feel bad about riding on the old golf course, so to speak. There is a part of the golf course that is still active. This is just gone in, you know? That's what I love about a trike like this, is it still leans over like a motorcycle. Not revving out nearly as high as she should, and I have no idea why. You have to see, when I hit that bump right there, the front tire came up and hit that fender. That'll have to be addressed. That'll be an easy enough fix though. I want to go over here to another part of the golf course. Do a hill climb. See how she pulls up hills. Do a no load RPM test. See what she actually wants to rev out to. This is actually the first one that I've been done. they are construction workers, then I will continue to ignore them. Ooh, that stall is really high. That's I think those might have been construction workers working on these new houses right here. Like I said, this where I'm at currently used to be part of the same log farms. But I don't think they'd be working in the rain. Once I go over there, it's some hill climb stuff on the other one. I will be doing a video on making this bike street legal eventually. So, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss that. It doesn't spin the rear tires at all, maybe because I have a super low gear ratio, but, and also like twice the traction, I guess, but. Oh. I don't know if it's because I got my gearing wrong, or the bike's just so damn heavy. It's not nearly as fast as I was anticipating, so we're gonna have to find out about that. There's a big hill over here, then we'll circle back around. Go back to the house. Climb this big hill on the other side of this. Now this bridge is super wet and slippery, so I'm gonna try not to fall here. Whoa! Yep, she's oh yeah, straight up that hill, no complaints. I know there's a curve right here that I'm trying to avoid. What the hell is all this mess? I know what some of this mess is. Oh yeah. She just went right up that hill, no complaints. Like I said, that front tire's hitting that bolt. One of the bolts sounds really fun. This is new. This will presumably be part of the new development that they're doing. I would circle back around that way to go back into my neighborhood, at least the adjacent neighborhood. But the bridge is out because of all this development. Yeah. Oh, it's digging a trench right there. That's nice. Oh, that's out too. Yeah, that bolt's gonna kill that tire. We gotta get that adjusted fast before we really ride it again. Who else in a note here? definitely punchier off the bottom now that I adjusted those that driven spring, but it's not revving all the way out. We'll have to see about that. Woo! Pop. Kickstand. Woo! Yeah. This thing's fun though. It has, as you can guess, it just has infinite traction. Just infinite traction. Unless you're on like wet wood. Woo. Yeah. I'm gonna put the bike back in the garage. I honestly think I'm gonna call this video here because this video is getting quite long. But now that the bike runs and drives and can go more than 5 minutes without braking, I want to go ahead and get this video out just to get it out there because this video is getting quite long. What is it at, like an hour 20 right now? So subscribe if you want to see this bike at its full potential because there's still things we have to do. It did rub a little bit on the last ride, as you can see with the tire right here, and it's not revving all the way out as far as it should, so I don't know if that's a gearing issue or a power issue, but if you want to see this bike at its full potential, hit that subscribe button, or if you want to see the Hummer at all, or you want to see me put an LH2 North Star V8 in that Pontiac Fiero, hit that subscribe button.